Dispatch columnist. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
All right, so
Hey, I gotta think you're happy. The Stanton is a Yankee, right?
well, no, actually, I hate the Yankees. So somebody better tell Giancarlo Stanton that because of Bush's or Trump's tax cuts, he's going to pay a lot more in taxes up in New York than he would here in Missouri.
That'll be the first question I ask him when he's introduced here this afternoon.
Is it official? Is he definitely with the Yankees?
Yeah, it's done. They're going to introduce him at a press conference here around 2 o'clock Florida time, and they saved his grand introduction to do it right here at winter meetings as kind of a party for the Yankees here. So the Yankees are embracing being hated once again, and they're going to roll out Stanton pinstripes here this afternoon in the main ballroom.
I think we both win. I didn't want him to be a Cardinal, but I certainly didn't want him to be a Cub. So we got him out of the league, which I guess is the best of a bad situation.
Well, it would have been best if he picked the Cardinals, I think. But we've come back and forth on this opinion for a while. The main thing right now is how the Cardinals respond. You got to give them credit for the play they made for Stanton. By many accounts, they offered to relieve the most of his salary. They also offered to give the Marlins the best package of prospects. But one thing they couldn't do is just convince the guy to come to St. Louis. So he had that full no trade clause, and he told San Francisco as well as St. Louis, "Look, I'm not coming." Now the Cardinals have to invest those resources elsewhere because they have a team that needs some help.
Where do they go?
Well, they could go a few different routes. There's trade options. First of all, they need to get a closer. I think Alex Colomé might be a guy they target from Tampa. They are targeting him. See if they can get that done. But in terms of the bat, I think you start with the same Marlins outfield. You look at Marcell Ozuna, who hit a ton this year but doesn't get talked about as much because he was playing in a lineup with Stanton. You look at, Christian Yelich, who may be that power bat at some point down the line. He's not there yet, but he has the profile for a guy who could be there. And then you kind of start to look at some of the free agents. Do they want to gamble on Eric Hosmer, who's going to get a big payday? Do they want to reconsider J.D. Martinez, who hit a ton last year, but the Cardinals haven't really showed much interest in that? Their first options off the board now. It's about we have to see how they rally here.
Ben, what about Moustakas, and what about anybody who is not being talked about?
Well, there's always the curveball in play. Every team is down here. Every team is meeting. The Cardinals, I think, are more willing to maybe make trades than free agents, so that muddies the water a little bit. Maybe they're talking for a guy that we're not talking about. There's always that possibility, but when you look around the league, you look at guys who would kind of fill that void, and they're pretty easy to pick out. I mean, if the Cardinals wanted to make a huge splash, they could do something totally unexpected, like try to trade for Manny Machado, who's going to hit free agency next year. But then you're talking about trading for a guy who could be gone. So those are the off the wall theories. But usually you look at free agents and you look at guys who are going to try to get out of contracts, or teams that are trying to cut payroll, and you start to wonder about, like an Evan Longoria in Tampa. If they don't move him within the first 10 days of the season, then he's going to have full no trade protection. They're looking at a rebuild, so maybe it's time to send him along, or a Carlos Gonzalez, who is looking for a bounce back year as a free agent. I mean, we're talking, it's not too hard to pick out who the potential players would be, which ones the Cardinals decide to prioritize next. That's what we're waiting to find out. Hopefully have a sense of that today.
Yeah. Do we know why Giancarlo Stanton snubbed St. Louis? Does he not like the city-county merger talks? I mean, is he not a fan of frozen custard? What's his deal?
I think he said he'd only go to a city that's won a Stanley Cup, but I haven't been able to.
Oh, snap.
No, I'm kidding. We're going to hopefully be able to ask him that today, and just try to. He has not spoken about the decision publicly yet, so we'll hopefully get a little better sense of that today, and we'll have a chance to talk with the Cardinals today about what their sense was in their meeting with him. So, there was always a thought going into it that maybe he preferred to be on a coast, that he really wanted to go to L.A. was kind of the understanding of many folks, and that was never going to happen because L.A. can't get rid of enough of their contracts. The Marlins were not going to take the contracts. L.A. needed to get under the salary penalty, so that was never going to work. The Dodgers were never as aggressive as the other teams in the equation, so they were never going to accept that trade. Now, when it came down to San Francisco and St. Louis, the Marlins accepted both of those deals. So if Stanton would have signed off on either one, he would have played for those teams. That was the only hurdle left. and he said, no, I'm not going, and then kind of used his leverage as basically a crowbar to send him to New York, where he clearly wanted to play with Aaron Judge and be in the bright lights, and he joins a team there that's probably going to become the World Series favorite based off the power they have in that lineup. He's the only guy in baseball who could make Aaron Judge look small.
Yeah. Do we know who the Yankees gave up?
They gave up a lot of prospects, not names that the average baseball fan would probably pay attention to. It was pretty much a salary dump. I mean, the Marlins are looking to really slash payroll. They're kind of in over the heads money-wise, and they want to go full-on rebuild. Right. So they basically gave Stanton away for as much money as the Yankees would give him, and some prospects that they hope to turn into something down the line. Let me throw out a crazy name for you, Ben, Fred. Let's start a little controversy here on our own. What about if the Cardinals were looking for a bat, not a lot of money, maybe a salary dump of their own, but the Angels and the Cardinals get together and trade Albert back to St. Louis? Yeah, I would just have questions about how much he has left. I mean that's a knock Albert Pujols, incredible player. You know, he's going to have a statue outside of Busch Stadium one day, and he deserves it. His numbers should be on the wall. But I mean, we're talking about a guy who's had injury concerns, who doesn't play all that much anymore, and also there's no DH. Right. So where are you going to put him? You know, I guess you could stick him back at first base, but he doesn't move like he used to move. Right. And I just think it would be more. You know, it would be great in the sense of he's back, but in terms of actual production and substance, it might actually end up tarnishing his legacy a little bit. Yeah. That was just a thought. That was an idea. I'd love to see him. I want to see him back in a Cardinal uniform. I don't care. I'm old school. Well, I hope he retires as a Cardinal, and I hope they make that happen if it's a one-day contract or something. I mean, I think he knows where the best of his career came, and I think the Cardinals do too. And frankly, I think there's a lot of respect there between those two, between him and the organization, that will only really grow as he gets toward the end of his career. Right. All right, Ben, be safe. We'll hear all about it in your column and at night with the sports guys. Thanks, Ben. Sounds good. Thanks, guys. Ben Frederickson, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist, with us every Monday, and then all the time at night with the sports guys. So if you want to know, I'm sure they'll have him on tonight after the Giancarlo Stanton news conference to find out why he's